Welcome to Mind Overboard. In this video, we're going to quickly examine an important recent event in the hope of providing a framework that allows us to view it in a different way than it's been presented. Specifically, I'm talking about the recent claim that the Me Too movement has officially misfired in prematurely ending the career of Signore, the creator of the YouTube channel Screen Junkies. With his legal battles now at an end, he's decided to share his side of the story along with the relevant evidence, which appears to fully exonerate him of the original accusations. And to be clear, his evidence is compelling and what he went through was terrible, even more so in the light of the evidence. The issue here is that his video, along with the videos emerging that discuss his situation, are being branded in a similar fashion, taking a shot at the Me Too movement and purporting to provide the much-feared example of what happens when it goes too far. Part of the danger here is that these videos are broadly appealing and relatively popular. Their influence is clear in that the associated comments are full of hot takes involving individuals questioning the legitimacy of taking an accuser-friendly stance in situations of sexual assault. Ultimately, this video is not about Mr. Signore, it's about why the outcome of his particular situation is meaningless in the context of the Me Too movement. To start, I'm going to lay some groundwork around my thoughts regarding Me Too itself. It is interesting a trope that has maintained such a firm grasp in our collective psyche for so long has been toppled so quickly. I'm referring to the idea that it's possible for individuals to exist who are too powerful or well-connected to be prosecuted for a crime, regardless of the apparent veracity of the allegations or associated evidence. The view is that the risk of an adverse fallout to the parties involved, either from an unsuccessful prosecution, retaliation by the accused, or indirect impacts to individuals tangentially associated with the accused, is too significant to make prosecution worthwhile, primarily associated with crimes involving sexual misconduct. Another branch of this line of thinking is that certain behaviors in the entertainment industry are ignored because backroom casting couch exploitation is a part of the entertainment business, and is viewed in some cases as a rite of passage for actors hoping to make it. How refreshing and appropriate, then, that the subversion of this meme, specifically in the context of sexual exploitation, and the resurgence of this particular hashtag, the MeToo hashtag having been around for some time beforehand, was associated with the takedown of one of the most well-known, powerful, and disgusting offenders in the guise of Harvey Weinstein. The emergent theme of the movement, of course, is that we should be taking a default position of giving accusers the benefit of the doubt in situations of sexual assault. By the encouragement of this event, many were emboldened to share their stories, and in cases where evidence dictated, charges were brought to bear under the scrutiny of the courts. It's been a concern from the start that this shifting balance could create a current that has the potential to go too far and drag down innocent people in its undertow. However, it's worth noting that, while incorrect convictions should be identified and avoided at all costs to maintain confidence both in the system and the general concept of justice, the risk of this happening does not put us in a worse position than the ongoing damage that results from growing accustomed to disregarding the testimony of abused women. The legal system provides a framework of support intended to ensure innocent people do not get convicted. Therefore, it should also be supported by the testimony of victims in the pursuit of justice. Constant calibration should always be a part of any endeavor to adduce the truth of a situation, and false accusers should obviously be punished. Mr. Signore enters the scene shortly after the events surrounding Harvey Weinstein kicked off. He was one of the first industry players to have accusations leveled against him when a woman came forward to claim that she was the victim of predatory sexual encounters a couple of years prior. At the time, Screen Junkies was owned by Defy Media, and Mr. Signore was their employee, although it's not clear if he was a general employee or if the terms of his employment were dictated by contract. Regardless, Defy elected to terminate his employment, and he was subsequently cast off by friends, colleagues, and fans. The evidence he now presents is compelling, and I'll link to his video with the recommendation that you go and make your own decision based on the facts he presents. He states his case clearly, so I don't find it necessary to dwell too long on the details. Again, the issue isn't Mr. Signore himself. What happened to him was terrible, and I wish him well. The issue arises from him marketing this coming out as a clear instance of the Me Too movement overstepping the boundaries of good taste, and the volume of comments expressing doubt about taking a default position of believing accusers that has resulted from these associated videos. A simple exploration of the theme of the Me Too movement and the evidence presented by Mr. Signore clearly shows that the difficulties he faced are not in any way related to Me Too, but are actually a direct result of our pervasive cancel culture. This position is supported by his video, in which he notes that many women who shared their stories of awkward, vaguely sexual interactions with him repeatedly insisted on social media that they did not consider his advances predatory. They viewed them as harmless, ineffective flirting and were posting the details with the intention to share information. In today's context, it's clear that many individuals using this information to stir up negative public opinion were primarily interested in propping up their own dog pile, rather than actually listening to the details of the stories these women were sharing. So even in general terms, this is not consistent with the Me Too movement. In addition, Defy Media's Human Resources Department made the call to terminate his employment. Without having access to all of that information, we can't say with certainty what drove their decision. It surely involved pressure from the mob, but we don't know if there were some other HR policies or terms of his contract that may have been violated enough to allow them to find justification for their actions. This doesn't make their actions actions credible. For instance, it would seem that the evidence and the fact that they settled his lawsuit against them could confirm a lack of confidence in their decision to some degree. The point is that this is a failure of their process and their decision-making. The pressure to take action wasn't created by the idea that we should start from the standpoint of giving accusers the benefit of the doubt. If outside pressure was impactful, this pressure clearly arose from a combination of some people deriving pleasure from declaring the mere implications of certain offenses unforgivable, and/or the feeling of gratification derived from participating in mob-enforced public drama. If the desired outcome is to live in a society that takes an initial stance of believing an accuser and then investigating the merit of the accusation based on evidence, the occurrence of these transgressions would be easily recognizable as a mistake. The prior position was to make an initial presumption based on character judgments, and only pursue an investigation in select cases, and after preparing the victim for the arduous process of going through hell with a high likelihood of arriving at their destination, only to watch their antagonist receive a minor sentence or acquittal. There is no question that the former situation should represent the status quo. When someone claims their house was robbed, the police do not begin by questioning how the victim could have acquired such expensive belongings, or imply that they brought this upon themselves by living in a house with tremendous curb appeal. Prosecutors don't have to warn them that the defense attorney will be calling witnesses and providing evidence detailing their personal financial history in an attempt to call into question not whether their house had been broken into, but whether or not their claims of what had been stolen were actually true, and consider that they would do this in lieu of presenting a factual, evidence-based defense. Similarly, if we did live in such a culture, and then had the good fortune of experiencing a shared awakening in which we mutually agreed that we should be managing these situations from the exact opposite perspective, would we immediately reverse course when someone like the Ace family, owners of a popular YouTube family channel, posted a fake vlogging video claiming their house was burgled? It would be incredibly sad for us, in the face of a few people acting in a disingenuous manner, to immediately lose our nerve and reverse course. And I hope the absurdity of this is not lost on you. With that, I think we've adequately covered the primary concerns with these videos in a simple and straightforward way that demonstrates the relevance and necessity of considering their impact. I sympathize with Mr. Signore and appreciate his forthrightness in sharing his experience and evidence. I also fully understand the anger evoked by false allegations. However, the fallout and personal damage, at least in this instance, was the consequence not only of our willingness but our eagerness to find pleasure in generating and exacerbating juicy drama and gossip, and the ease with which we mentally cast off from our cultural recognition those individuals we identify as being possibly bad people based on some things we heard and despite a dearth of evidence. Despite all this, we can still interact in a kind and considerate manner with our coworkers, acquaintances, and strangers without fear of unwarranted reprisals. The frequency of false accusations is low enough that it's not something worth devoting an abundance of concern toward. Although it's hard to say that it would be a bad thing not to leverage that feeling into a state of cognition in which we find ourselves more attuned to the feelings and viewpoints of others. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below, and to participate in the channel by becoming a subscriber. Thank you for watching.